And now we are live for real. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am so excited to be back with you for another episode of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth TV show. Powerful conversations for living your best life. And I am here with the one and only KRISTY KUHL. And KRISTY is an amazing woman who is a life and business strategist, a top influencer to live healthy and wealthy lives. And she supports children that struggle to have good quality nutrition. And she's a major activist for animal rescue and fostering. And while I'll have a little more to share with you about KRISTY, I just want to say, KRISTY, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lynn. It is a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here because we're going to talk about some things that I think most people don't really think about. And when it comes to who you are, a life and business strategist, helping people achieve the healthy, wealthy lives they deserve, it was interesting for me to see that one of your deepest desires is that everyone will feel what you feel in their everyday lives. And that is so beautiful. When people are truly healthy and wealthy, you're right, there's nothing they can't accomplish in life. And to know that you are a staunch believer in beyond achievement being where true fulfillment lives, I totally support that as well. The fact that you are not just a social entrepreneur supporting these causes, but they are causes that are near and dear to your heart. I just want to say I applaud you, I welcome you, and I'm so glad to be in this conversation with you.
Oh, you are so sweet and kind. It is truly my privilege to serve your people and to share, a little bit about my journey. Perhaps if it can help one person, that means the world to me.
And me. So with that, why don't you tell us a little more about you and your journey and how you got to focus on helping others and being such a wonderful example of social entrepreneurship, especially when it comes to some pretty important causes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my journey, I grew up in the Midwest. I am a Midwest girl, grew up in small town, Ohio. And now I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I did all the things that I quote unquote thought I was supposed to do. I went to college, I went to graduate school, and I settled into a career, with the desire to make a lot of money so that I didn't have to worry about money and that I could have some, I could contribute more to the world. I think that money makes you more of who you are. And if you're a good person, the more money you have, the more good you're going to do. And if you're a bad person, you're going to use that for leverage and in some negative ways. So that was really, the lens that I could see for myself at 22 years old when I finished graduate school. So I settled into a very lucrative career, which was my goal. And I also wanted to serve people. So I was in the medical device space and I had this knack for launching disruptive medical device technologies. So things that were one of its kind, completely changed healthcare and was saving lives. And that made me feel really, really, really good to be able to contribute to people and give them surgical options that would, change their outcome. When I got into healthcare, I realized though that these poor physicians were working ungodly hours and their pay continued to get cut. And they only really had the option to be reactionary. And when they went to school, they didn't learn a whole lot about nutrition and the proactive stuff, nor did they get paid to educate their people for that. So that always kind of stuck in the back of my head. And I thought, okay, well, somewhere in my career, I'm going to do something with this. But I kept going with my career and, promotion after promotion and moved around the country. And I found myself in a few different times where I was up against burnout. And I had pushed myself so much and the stress was very high and I wasn't taking the time to take care of myself. And so I'd take little breaks here and there and then go right back into it. And then I was at a Tony Robbins conference 5 years ago. I'm 40 now, so I was 35. And I still remember where I was standing and what color shirt he had on. And he said, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I thought, oh, doggies, he just put words to everything that I'm feeling. It was like a bolt of lightning hit me in the face. And now that I am looking at it, what am I going to do with this? So I sat down and I wrote down all the things that make me feel fulfilled as a person. And it was being in nature, and it was really connecting to people, and making them feel like they're seen and heard and important, because everybody is. And listening well. I feel like I'm a really good listener. And animal rescue, and being the voice for the voiceless, the children, the veterans, the animals. And I thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to make money doing this, because but if I don't make a shift, I am, I'm going to continue. If I keep living the life that I'm living, it's never going to intersect and allow me to have this fulfillment. So I knew I had to make a change. And so I was, at that point forward, my eyes were open, my ears were open, and I was looking for opportunities, not only to to make myself healthier and stronger, but also be able to pass those gifts on to others.
That is beautiful. What a story. And I think that, when you have a wake up call like that, that bolt of lightning in the face kind of thing, you really start seeking answers.
Mhm.
What can I do? Who can I align with? What does this mean for me? What about my family? What about, the next 10 years, or however many years you see that shifting taking place? And I know that you and I talked about you putting yourself in some spaces and places where you felt that that support was there for
Mhm.
you to actively make that shift, begin in that space of self-fulfillment, knowing that you were making a much bigger difference in the world, just because your heart was now more into the energy of, helping others to live life better. What are some of the things that you did initially? Was there one coach or one opportunity that actually catapulted you to the rest?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I believe in coaching. I think that the power of having a coach is, it's really hard to put a number to it. I think that the coaching industry has really blown up right now, and it's saturated, but there's so many amazing coaches. And first and foremost, it's accountability and support, just on the basic level. And then building upon that, a business coach or a personal coach has seen this movie time and time again. So it's the first time that you've seen it, but it's not the first time that they've seen it. So they can help you feel like it's okay, first of all, so that you can let your shoulders down and really start to think, and start to put a plan in place. But secondarily, they have all these resources, and they've seen the movie before, which has ended in multiple different ways for people. So they can offer suggestions, and it's going to cut the time down significantly. For me, I go against the grain, and I don't, because I go against the grain. I had to change my circle up, and I started doing this probably about 10 years ago. And if I like to be the dumbest person in the room, and I like to be surrounded by people that are doing the things that I want to do. So I constantly make sure that I'm plugging into personal development. And there's so many free ways to do that, with just listening to a good book or a podcast, or jumping in a clubhouse room. Now that's one way that I'm getting and adding a lot of value to the world for free. So I think that you need to realize that if you feel like you're stuttering, or you feel like you're afraid to step out, but at the same time you're getting this internal pull, like, hey, I should be doing this, but nobody else around you is doing it, and your family may think you're crazy, or your husband may think you're crazy. You have to get a good support system, and whether that's a coach, and or just aligning with other people. There's so many ways to do that. I would infuse, sometimes 90% of my day, I would have all of that in my ears by listening to good books or podcasts or whatever it may be, talking to a coach. because you got to keep your energy high and you got to stay focused. And especially if you're doing something and you're really tuning into your internal compass or your intuition for the first time, you start to question it. And that's what happens. But our brain gets in the way and then we stop following our heart. So if we can get out of our heart and get into, get out of our head and get into our heart and just let that intuition pull us, not exactly knowing where we're going, knowing the end result, but not knowing how we're going to get there. That's a beautiful place. A lot of people can get there through meditation. I can now, but for the longest time, it was active meditation. So it was through a workout or it was reconnecting to myself, via a walk in nature.
Oh, that's great. I think those are the kind of things that people need to hear. There's no one way to do it. And it's about experimenting, finding out what really makes your heart sing, makes you hear music when there is no music, kind of thing. That's awesome. And, people sometimes think that journey that we're speaking about is too tough. It's too hard to turn the corner, to declare that there is something better for you, that there is, even greatness within you, that you may want to just, play it cool and not rock the boat and, not show up and shine, because then you're showing up and shining. What would you say to that person?
Yeah. So there's nothing out there worth having that doesn't take some work and some effort. And especially a major shift and a change like that in your life. Now you don't have to do it so abruptly. There's really small changes that you can start to make in your life that will make a huge impact over time. It doesn't have to be this huge, thing like I did, leaving corporate America to start my own company, to then have the flexibility and the freedom to focus on my passion projects. There's little things that you can do along the way to make a shift, but just realize that nothing worth having comes easy. So that's where you have to have the end goal in mind. And sometimes people say if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not a good enough why. I get that. It's very true, because when you're trying to do something new, you have good days and you have bad days. And if the why is not strong enough, then you're not going to get through the bad days the way that you should. I could not, my why, I couldn't see myself impacting as many people as I've been impacting now. And it was because my confidence as an entrepreneur and as an influencer, wasn't there like it was as an employee. I knew how to do that job. So instead of having this huge, like elaborate, glamorous why, I had more of a I don't want to feel these certain things that I'm feeling right now. So the momentum that helped me just step out onto the path. And when you step out onto the path starts to appear for you. Was that I don't want to have my time wasted anymore. I cannot stand to be in meetings for the sake of having meetings that could have been an email or a text message. I cannot stand to watch people, the corporate politics. It's not me. I don't like to treat people poorly because it's what's expected of me as a corporate leader. So those were just my, things that I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to feel stressed anymore. I wanted to get a good night's sleep, I mean, all these little things this probably shouldn't say this, but like women, when we hold on to everything, we don't go to the bathroom like we're supposed to. I mean, that's a real health risk for us. So I started just go what? I just want to have my shoulders down. I just want to be able to sleep through the night, and so that's what got me started. And then once I stepped out onto the path, then I could start to dream big. And I would encourage everybody, if you have a dream to impact others or whatever it is, it's totally doable. We just got to break it down in a way that you have the courage to make the first step.
Wow, that was awesome. And you said something there that I want to actually expand on. I know that one of your core messages is actually our topic. Freedom is within reach. What does that really mean to you? What is Yes, I mean, you can conceivably see that freedom is within reach, but what does that really mean?
Yeah, well, I think that, and again, sometimes you put things out there and you're speaking to yourself, right? And then you end up, attracting other people that may be getting themselves tripped up the same way you were. But we tend to overcomplicate everything, and I'm a Virgo, and so Virgos overthink everything 100 times over. So, I think that we make it so complex, and complexity is really it's the opposite of success. The more complex it is, the harder it is for people to understand. And so I like to focus. And so what happens is you just get paralyzed and you do nothing because it seems like it's so hard and so complex that you don't. So when I talk to people, I like to understand, what is the biggest pain point for them right now? If, what is, and is there a way that we can take a little bit of that pain away? And we just start to make small, simple changes towards alleviating that pain. And before you know it, the fog starts to lift. So that's what I mean by freedom is within your reach, because Tony Robbins talks about a 2 millimeter shift. I mean, making a 2 millimeter shift is the difference between hitting the target and not hitting the target. And so we overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but we underestimate what we can accomplish in 10 years. So consistency is the key to it all, right? I mean, it's, you just have to show up and you have to make an effort every single day. And if you have a bad day, all right, you know what? Sleep it off. Tomorrow, we're going to get back on the horse. We're going to show up and we're going to be consistent. And if you can do that, I mean, even with one thing for 30 days, like try drinking one extra glass of water a day. I'm not saying you have to drink half your body weight in ounces like like we're supposed to, but just try drinking one extra glass of water a day for 30 days and tell me you don't feel better after 30 days. You will. So, I think that we have to set goals that are realistic for ourselves, and realize that a lot of things have a stacking, compounding effect over time.
Nice, very nice. And I think that that actually um, opens people up to seeing that the possibilities aren't this gigantor thing that we have to work so hard to accomplish. It's so far out in the distant future. I mean, you gave the formula, break it down, and what's your next step? Let's do that. And I think that is so key in the conversation about healing and health. We're talking about making progress in life, and some people really struggle in the space of health. And I know that, we've talked about the whole nutrition thing, being in the medical field. You saw what doctors have been faced with who have no nutritional education to be able to support their patients and clients in. And I'm seeing more today where there are ill doctors who are treating patients. And that's a dangerous space to be in, even if they are experts in their field, because one of the things that has surfaced in the last few years is the fact that the standard American diet is not this, it is not what it is supposed to be. I'll put it that way. And because of that, this pyramid that they've designed actually is in error. And I think that changes are coming about to shift that, to really put emphasis on the foods that are healthy foods, your vegetables and fruit and your plant-based foods. I mean, and we're seeing a lot of the major industries showing up in a space that they are already predicting things are shifting in, and speed of shift comes in there as well. So for instance, big food that has for decades have had people thinking that the combination of, beef and cheese and, bread and all of these things are like the best and the best for you. when we actually know that decades of consuming this is part of what has caused a lot of the things that we're experiencing now as far as people and ill health. And I say all of that to bring it back to a lot of the health issues that we suffer with today, that a lot of people suffer with, are foodborne illnesses. And so, what's your take on healing, knowing what you know, the journey that you've been on, and getting people to live the healthy, long life that all of us, I think, start out thinking we want, but we don't get.
Yeah, yeah, such a crucial topic. And I'm so glad you brought that up. So, I think first and foremost, stress is such a horrible thing. And I've been through it. I put so much pressure on myself over the years and then put myself in stressful environments, and then also, was not aligned in the right relationship, and, etc. And so uh, it's hard to see what life can be like when you're in the middle of it if you've never felt what it's like to not have that stress. But I think if you are honest with yourself and you get, I teach this in a values course, and also, just knowing your physiology. So, for example, one of my highest values is integrity and truth. Well, I was in a relationship with somebody who, had a hard time telling the truth. So there was an incongruence there that was getting the best of me subconsciously, right? And that really stacks over time. Same thing, corporate America, violated my core value system a lot. My core values are integrity, respect, and appreciation. Well, that was violated every single day. So, I don't think we realize sometimes the choices that we make. I lived in Wisconsin. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina now. I don't like the cold. I mean, so, that wasn't congruent for me. So I think that stress, first and foremost, you have to eliminate the stress, and that never can happen. It never really happens overnight. But you have to identify the sources of stress and start to make some shifts to get that stress reduced in some way. I don't think I've ever seen a controversial article that said that vegetables are bad for you. Right? I mean, there's controversial conversation about lectins and nightshades and yada yada. Okay, that again, it's controversial. But in general, nobody's ever said that, hey, you shouldn't eat that many vegetables. In
Okay.
fact, it's the opposite, right? I mean, so
Right.
if you look at the meat and the dairy and etc., there's a lot of evidence to say, and gluten and whatever processed foods. I mean, so I tend to go, where everybody's in agreement on. And so, and being a science-based person, I look at the evidence, and the evidence shows that if you eat a diet that's rich in plants, and I'm not saying that you can't have your meat or you can't have, cheese every now and again or whatever, but if there's one thing that you can focus on doing, and it's eating more vegetables, then that helps with systemic inflammation. It's going to help with your immune system. It's going to, reduce cardiovascular disease and diabetes, and it's going to help you process your insulin regulation and weight control, the list goes on and on and on. So, you have to, if you want to live a long life, and you want it to be a good one where you're in good health, then you have to realize that you are what you eat. And plant medicine. I think I'll say one more thing, because I didn't know it until I did a cleanse in Fiji. I thought a multivitamin was a good thing to do because I didn't need enough fruits and vegetables, so I thought I could take a multivitamin. Well, first of all, the vitamin industry is unregulated, so you don't know what's really in it. Second of all, there's only 13. Well, you don't know if it's being absorbed either. A lot of that stuff goes out the same way it came in. So you're just wasting your money. Nobody's regulating it. So who knows if what they say is in it's really in it. That's reality. And you can, there's many articles, Google it, you'll see how many pop up on that topic. But the thing that I didn't catch with me until about 5 years ago is that, an apple has 10,000 phytonutrients in addition to the vitamins and minerals. So that's why they say eat the whole food, because it's all those things that I just mentioned of being in good health. It comes from the vitamins and minerals, but most importantly, it comes from the phytonutrients. So you have to eat, you're supposed to eat whole food. Try your best. Again, don't make a huge shift tomorrow, because you're not going to be able to hang with going from your diet to vegan tomorrow. Not saying you even have to be vegan, but just maybe see, can I add one more vegetable in tomorrow? Right? Like every day, can I just add one more vegetable in? Same thing for your kids. And those behaviors over time will stack. Your body will start to crave more vegetables, and you'll live that life. If not, and the cool thing about vegetables is you have the ability to turn off the bad genes. So if somebody says, hey, Vlyn, your grandma had diabetes, it's in your genes, you're probably going to get it. No, yeah, it's in your genes, but the gene is like that's like, the gun. Now, your diet is going to pull the trigger or not. So if you eat good, then you're never going to flip that. You're never going to flip that gene on. And I think sometimes people accept these labels for themselves, which is kind of an excuse to have a hall pass, when it's really not true. You can change this, and you can change this at any age.
I love the analogy. You think you have a hall pass, but you're walking down the wrong hall.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong space, because your hall pass is only going to lead you to more of what it is that you ultimately don't want. And I really appreciate what you said about just add one more vegetable. And one of the things that I'd love to invite people to do is download my free top 15 alkaline foods.
Mm.
Alkaline foods are some of the greatest vegetables and fruits and spices and roots that you can put in your body, that your body is actually looking for. And if it hasn't gotten it, when it gets it, you're going to feel it, because it's going to celebrate. And I love that. I so love that. I wanted to bring in, so every once in a while I get an opportunity to talk to somebody about what an upcoming episode is going to be about, and what it's going to contain, who my guest is going to be. And I was talking about you, and a friend of mine said, Lynn, I want to check that one out, because here's what she says. I struggle to get freedom in my life. I'm tied to a job that I don't necessarily like, but it pays pretty well, and I have some fear about leaving. I'm tied to a lifestyle that has me taking care of others, and I don't take care of myself like I should. And even though, and she made this caveat, I don't want to shit all over myself, and I don't want to could all over myself. I just need some solid stuff. I know some of this is about setting boundaries, she says. Do
Mm.
you have a formula for setting boundaries that can help me find it easier to say no when I don't want something or don't want to do something? It's not something that I learned to do. Even though I hear other people talk about it all the time, it's just not something that comes natural. So there you go.
That's a really good question. And actually, I think that I thought I was really good at it before, but then COVID, we had an excuse to not do things, right? And so then coming out of COVID, I had to really make sure that that skill was honed in, because people, all we have is time. And if you're not focusing on the things that are important to you, then it's really hard to, you're never going to have the fulfillment that you want. And so the simple formula that I always ask myself is, well, first and foremost, you have to get clear on what does she want to do. So if she left the corporate job, or if she had a little bit more time, then what would she work on during that time? And maybe it's just recharging her batteries, or maybe there's a side hustle she wants to get started so she can eventually leave corporate America, but she feels like she has to say yes to all of her friends and all of her family. And so she ends up doing things that she doesn't want to do, and then is leaving no time. I think, is that what I'm understanding for her?
Yeah. And she even mentioned, she says, I'm scared to even look for another job that I think I might like better and apply because rejection and I don't want to hear no. And it's hard for me to say no.
Okay. So two things there. So the first thing when it comes to the boundaries, I always ask myself, is this a priority right now? And that's something that so I teach a time management course, and we teach, really how to identify what we want for our life in this season. So right now, in this chapter of my life, which could be a month, it could be a year, it could be 5 years, is this thing that I'm doing something that I want in my life right now? Because I always say, I believe you can have it all. It's a matter of, are you going to have it all right now? What things am I going to have now? What things am I going to, be able to focus on in the next chapter? So first and foremost, we need to lay out what is important to her for this season. And then if something comes along and it doesn't fit into any of those categories, and for me, every week, one of my categories is friends and family. What am I going to do? It's important to me, but who am I going to spend time with? And there's only so much time that I can allot there. So when I get asked to do things, I always say, is this a priority right now? And some weeks I have more free time to just have a casual connection. Other times I can't. It has to be, certain people, that my grandmother, my mother, my whatever. So it's so and so's birthday. So I don't say that to the person like, hey, so and so, you're not a priority this week, or you're not a priority right now. But I ask myself in my head, is this a priority? um and then you just have to come up with a statement that you're comfortable with saying to that person. I usually let people know that I have certain things going on, and so I always start off and say, oh my goodness, I would absolutely love to do that. It just unfortunately it doesn't work in my schedule that week. I'm unable to move some things around. I don't believe in lying. I don't believe in pretending like I have something else to do. I believe in saying something that aligns, with full of integrity. So maybe that can help your friend. Just, is this a priority right now for this season? And then the second part of that, it sounds like she doesn't want to apply for a job because she's fearful of rejection. It's imposter syndrome is it's a big thing for a lot of us. We don't feel like we're deserving. And I believe that everything happens the way that it's supposed to. So if we can start to shift and reframe her thinking about applying and that rejection, as this just wasn't my time. And so I'll share a story from last night. I was over at a neighbor's house, and she was very, very upset. She moved here from a different state. She's been unemployed for a little while. Bank of America called her. She was interviewing for a position. She really wanted it. 2 weeks later, Bank of America called her back and said, you know what? We're reworking the description of the job. And we think you're great and you'd be a great fit for something here, but not just for this, because we need somebody that, has more experience in the tech space. And she was devastated. And I said, listen, they didn't have to call you back. So the fact that they called you back tells me that they like you and they're being honest with you. You just have to hear the words. But it's kind of like when you get that review from your boss and there's 36 things that you did great at and there's one area for improvement. What's the only thing we hear? The one area for improvement. So, and I shared with her that there was a job that I really wanted, and I was overqualified for it, and they told me no, and I was devastated too. But then they called me back later, and they had even a better job 3 months later, the same company. So I think that you have to realize that you have to fall in love with the process, and you're interviewing these people just as much as they're interviewing you. And if somebody says no to you, then that means that there's something better out there for you. There's a better fit for you. And this is happening for a reason. So, what is the lesson in this? Or what is the opportunity in this? So I think that's where not going through life alone and having great friends and a great circle. And sometimes if you can have a business coach or a life coach, that can be helpful as well. But at the end of the day, if you've written out what's important to you, this is the Dickens process. and you stay where you are right now, are you ever going to get to where you're trying to get to? And the answer is probably going to be no. If she stays in that job, she's never going to get. So listen, you have to learn how to get leverage on yourself. And we make moves in our life when we have when we have a lot of pain. And also, so, we're motivated by pain and pleasure. Most people make moves when there's something that's really painful and they want to shift it, like I did when I left corporate America. So if you're feeling a lot of pain, it probably took a process to get to the point you are right now. And realize that the door opens up, and if you have the courage, you're going to step through it. And if you don't, if you retract back into your shell, that process kind of starts over again. And then you have to go through, you got to get beat up a little bit, and you have to feel that pain again. And then the opportunity is going to present itself. So I think awareness is a lot of all of this. Just be aware that that's the way that it works. And so usually now that I know this, if the door is opening and I'm a little scared, I'll call the people, I have a circle of friends that I trust, and they'll be like, all right, we're going to give you the kick in the behind that we know you need right now to, walk over that threshold. Or sometimes I plug into personal development, or I call my coach, or I turn on my favorite song, or I go get a workout, and that boosts my endorphins and lifts me high enough to know that I need to take that step. But we're all human, we got to give ourselves grace. We just keep showing up. And if you do that, it'll just keep getting better and better.
That's perfect. That's a great way to actually say this came about at the time that was supposed to happen for her. To have this question asked and you answered in such a beautiful way. Thank you for that. That's awesome. I love synchronicity, how things like this happen. And, Kristy, many of our conversations here on the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show dive into, as we were speaking about a little earlier, the subject of using food as medicine and living a whole food, plant-based diet and lifestyle. And you appear to be in great health. You're living a lifestyle that is a healthy lifestyle. And, in spite of how full your life also is right now, share with our audience some of the ways. You shared some of the ways that you manage stress, but include what a healthy meal looks like in that day of Kristy Kuhl.
Yeah, absolutely. So I burn pretty fast, and I do eat quite a bit throughout the day. But my diet my plate is always more than halfway full of vegetables. So I have been very focused on gut health, and also just, I know that the magic is in the plants. So people can measure things out. I have to have very simple things to do, and I have to have, so I don't do the measuring. I don't tell you, but if I have over 50% of my plate full of vegetables, then I'm going to hit my target every day. So that's an easy thing for me to remember, and then I have a little bit of protein, and I have a little bit of fat. So half my plate is vegetables. I try to eat them raw as much as I possibly can. And I don't schedule a lot of meetings over meals, because chewing is so incredibly important. We have to break that food down. So I just have a couple, little things that that guide me throughout the day that help me have optimal health. We can't eat our way to health like we used to be able to, like our grandmothers could, because a lot of our produce is picked early, so it lacks the nutrition. So I supplement every day with whole food capsules. It's just dehydrated fruits and vegetables in a capsule. That has helped my health as well, and drinking water. So I don't do anything that magical. I stay away from all the stuff. Now, I don't deprive myself, but you don't see, I shop the perimeter of the grocery store. That's another easy rule. I shop the perimeter of my grocery store, and I make sure I schedule time on my calendar to prep some food for the week. So I think, having a plan is very important. And if you don't have fresh food available to you, then you're going to reach for things. So I don't keep the packaged stuff in my house. Now, the other day I was like, for whatever reason, I just needed a bite of a Kit Kat. I don't know why, but it was just calling my name. I don't keep Kit Kats in the house because I'd probably, end up eating the whole thing. But I bought the Kit Kat when I was at the grocery store, and I just had two little bars and I threw it away. I don't think that you should deprive yourself, but set yourself up for success. And you need to know yourself. So if I have junk in the house and I don't have time to prepare healthy food, I'm going to reach for the junk. So guess what? When I sit down and I schedule my week, shopping, prepping food that's a priority. You want to, you ask, is this a priority? Absolutely. So, but it wasn't always that way. I lived off of protein shakes and, didn't drink any water as I was, planes, trains, automobiles around the country because eating slowed me down. So now I realize that you should eat raw if you can, and you should chew, and you need to drink water. So again, I have these, these overall, wouldn't say rules, but just guidelines for myself. And there's certain, sometimes I dial them in a little bit more. I do see a naturopath, and I like to be in optimal health and make sure that everything that I am doing. And sometimes that's kind of like just having a coach. Like sometimes, if I don't have that accountability, I'm probably going to have a better opportunity to slip up and make some bad choices. Accountability is a big deal.
Beautiful. Once again, very well said. And I love the fact that not only is it a process, it's something that you have to experiment with, because you made a great point. You have to know yourself. If
Yeah.
you feel as though you don't, you have to go through the process of experimenting. And, it's one of the reasons why I believe that elimination diets, and I hate to call them diets, but the elimination process works so well. Just eliminate everything that you think might be harmful to you.
Mhm.
Go on this thing of just eating what the fruits and vegetables, cooked raw fruits and vegetables, cooked raw. I'll repeat it, fruits and vegetables. And then add back certain things that might be good for you. I mean, I love the whole plant supplements, and just doing those things that will support you
Mhm.
nutrition wise. And when you add something back that your body is talking to you about, because our bodies do respond to all of this stuff. And one of the beautiful things that I've learned is how our bodies can respond to things before we even put them in us. And
Mm.
there are a couple of tools that I use, kinesthetics, and, just, measuring the energy of something before I even ingest, because my body is an energy system, and it sees energies approaching it and will alert me to, that might not be good for you. So let's just leave it. And, I'll give you an example. We were in the grocery store the other day, and I just happened to look. One of my old favorites was those box of Intamin donuts with the chocolate icing. I just happened to look over there, and I immediately felt the energy shift to say, I'm glad I saw you, but nope. And we get to that point,
Yeah.
going back to the over time, our bodies just are such intuitive things, and we've learned how to ignore the natural ability that we have and override some things that our bodies have told us. And
Mhm.
we can get away with that for quite a while until our bodies just say, nope, no more. And then what we've manifested are things that we need to now fix.
Mhm.
And so I love it. And, for someone like me who, spent my early years um, in the fitness industry, there were a lot of things that I did that were really great to my body, and a lot of things that I did without even knowing it that really hurt my body. And over time, what I started then began to continue in that deterioration, that it actually showed up as, now surgery is needed because something has broken. And if you get to that point, you know, I I'd love for you to chime in here and really say how you might support someone who's gotten to that point of, I've got some really serious things I'm facing right now. What advice as a coach would you give them?
Yeah, so I mean, people have got to want to change. So I don't say anything to anybody unless they're willing to make the change. You can't make somebody want something. So that's step number one. If they want to make a change, then I will. Again, it's a lot of the things that we've talked about over this interview. There are holistic ways that you can go. I don't know if regardless of what it is they're dealing with. Sometimes surgery is the answer. Sometimes we do have to intervene with pharmaceuticals. But I think first and foremost, I get really excited when people want to make a change, because that your why has to be really, really strong. If they don't have a strong why, then there's not much I can do, and I don't really waste the time. I mean, don't want to take anybody's money. I don't want to take up anybody's time or my own because they're not ready to make the move. So usually if they're ready to make the move, then they're relentless and they won't leave you alone, right? But if they're not ready, then they have to perhaps they're ready enough to make one small simple change. And if they're ready to do that, then perhaps if they walk down that path with that one simple change, then they'll catch the vision along the way. But it's really up to them. And I think that as anybody who's trying to who is of an influence, you just have to put things before people. And there's a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So, you can put things that you think are, along the lines of what they're feeling in front of them. And perhaps that'll be enough to crack the door open. And once the door's open, can you crack it open a little bit further? So, yeah, that's what I would say to that.
Great. I love that. Great response. And Christy, as we're bringing our conversation to a close, I mean, you've shared such great wisdom today. I'm so grateful that you've brought all of this, including when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, because that is the space that we're in. It's about disrupting normal thinking and shifting the paradigm to let people know that the alternatives are available. You just have to want them. You just have to want it for yourself. And when you do, there's miracles that happen in that space. And again, as we're about to close, is there some wisdom amongst all that you've already shared that you believe is important to get to our audience? Something that will make a positive impact in the life of someone that's could be watching.
I think that one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself on your journey to health, wealth, and wisdom is to be yourself. I think that there is nobody that can be you, and you were put on this earth to impact and to connect with your own gifts. So if you're out there and you don't feel like you're living your best life, usually when we're not aligned with our true gifts and we're not living in our zone of genius and we're not chasing our passions, we tend to get out of whack, and health is one of the first things to go. So I would look towards contribution. What do you like to give back to? And what friends and family do you really want to pour into? Because that's usually the place. If you can spend more time doing that, then we can start to make a tilt and influence all the other areas of your life.
Wonderfully said. Thank you. What great wisdom. Wow. So there you have it. We're wrapping up. And if you enjoyed the information, the wisdom, the wealth of knowledge that Christy shared today, put a comment under this video. We're going to share Kristy's info so that you can reach her from her website, and let us know what you'd like to hear more about, what subject matter you'd like more information about. We're going to bring you more every week, and I cannot wait for our next guest. And if you're a health, wisdom, or wealth practitioner and you'd like to share your knowledge and expertise with our audience to be in this conversation, reach out to me, PM me, message me on Facebook, LinkedIn, email me at vlan@p3academy.com, and let's connect. Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of our show. We've got some exciting things coming up, so stay tuned, turn on your notifications, find us on YouTube, and please do us a favor of sharing this information. Help us get the message out. Thanks again. Thank you, Kristy. And until next time, everyone, be well, live, love, be a bigger positive impact maker in your world. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.